Hello everyone, my name is John Louis Fuentes, Masters of Project Management and Property Development from the University of Technology Sydney, and I will be presenting to you my case uh, study from Sustainable Urban Development, Spring 2017, about the city of New York and flooding. So, so one of the grandest places in the world, New York is considered to be one popular giant place among many first world uh, environments for many reasons. New York is made up of five sections: Manhattan, the Bronx, Queen, Brooklyn, and Richmond. They lie at the mouth of the Hudson River in the southeast corner of the state of New York. Population is 8.5 million, with 4.4 increase since 2010. The total land area is 1,213 kilometers squared. The land area is 789 kilometers squared. The water is 429 and 53 kilometers squared. The metro is 34,490 kilometers squared. The time zone is Eastern Standard Time, and the GDP, or gross metropolitan product, is $1.6 trillion. So New York versus Sydney, Australia. You can see here that there are at least 12 categories that New York and Sydney can be compared to. Number one is average maximum temperature, and we can see here that Sydney is hotter than New York with 21.7 degrees Celsius, and the average minimum temperature is New York has the colder weather sometimes because it's 8.8 degrees Celsius. The average temperature on a normal year, throughout the whole year, is New York has 12.7 degrees Celsius, and Sydney has a higher temperature, 17.7. Coastal areas, yes, New York and Sydney has. Four seasons, yes. And basically, population density, annual population growth, and employment rate, and environmental preservation awareness and global city index. Yes, you can see it there. New York has experienced many major flooding events in the past, and one would be the June 1972 tropical storm Agnes that resulted in 24 deaths and damages of approximately 703 million. That was in 1972 US dollars. Another one is in January 19 to 20, 1996, as a result of rapid meltdown of a snowpack along with 2.4 inches of rain. A record flooding occurred on Schoharie Creek, as well as significant flooding on Mohawk River at the Schenectady and on the Hudson at Albany. 15.5 feet, the greatest flood peak since New Year's 1949. Although New York is not new to flooding, it has experienced its most horrific climate events in 2012 when the Hurricane Sandy visited on October 22 to 29. Sandy was no ordinary hurricane, it was a meteorological event ending with a colossal impact. A total of 43 deaths, 6,500 patients evacuated from hospitals and nursing homes, nearly 90,000 infrastructures in the inundation zone, 1.1 million New York City children unable to attend school for a week, and close to 2 million people without power. That resulted in $19 billion in the damage. You can see here the flood maps, or commonly known as the FEMA flood maps, that only reflects the current flood risk. It is likely that our floodplains, or New York's floodplains, will extend even further in the future. The terms 100-year and 500-year flood can provide a false sense of security. A 100-year flood is not that flood that happens once every 100 years. Rather, it is a 1% or greater chance of occurring in any year. Experiencing a 100-year flood does not decrease the chance of a second 100-year flood occurring that same year or any year that follows. So Irene-like storms of the future would put a third of New York's streets underwater and flood many of the tunnels leading into Manhattan in under an hour because of the climate change. A group of US scientists did a research on 2016 stating that hurricanes could start flooding New York and its coastlines as often as every 20 years due to the effects of climate change on sea level rise and hurricane activity that results to storm water. A research entitled The Increased Threat of Tropical Cyclones and Coastal Flooding to New York City During the Anthropogenic Era states that changes in tropical cyclone characteristics have led to increase in the extremes of the types of storms that create the largest storm surges for New York. As a result, flood risk or, for example, has greatly affected the region. The overall graph shows a gradual trend towards increase of rainfall, which is consistent with these recent observations of large precipitation events. So strategies and mitigations. What are the strategies and mitigation plans that New York has implemented after Hurricane Sandy back in 2012? You can see here that there are 5 main categories. Number 1 is managing surface groundwater. Number 2 is protecting the buildings. Number 3, protecting infrastructure. Number 4, coastal defenses and environmental controls. So there are actually different projects and plans per strategy and mitigation plan that New York is currently doing. Risk management. After Hurricane Sandy that caused the biggest urban flooding in New York, the city has identified its risk. Neighborhoods, individuals, property and infrastructure, and the environment. According to the New York government, an integrated approach to managing flood risk starts with the recognition that flooding is a natural process that cannot be altogether prevented. The approach focuses on increasing public awareness of risks, particularly among people living in flood zones, and reducing the vulnerability of risk-prone individuals and communities, creating multiple lines of defense to protect buildings and infrastructure, and employing the collaboration of many parties from both the public and private sectors to strengthen the city's overall capacity to cope with and recover from periodic flooding. So what can we learn from New York? And can this be applied to the city of Sydney? So planning for resilience in the aspect of urban flooding is still a topic that many people has to be aware of. For New York, Hurricane Sandy was an alarming wake-up call to show that regardless of New York's greatness, it is still vulnerable to destruction of extreme weather conditions. After the Hurricane Sandy, the leaders of the city of New York initiated a report entitled A Stronger, More Resilient New York, a comprehensive plan that contains actionable recommendations for both rebuilding the communities impacted by Sandy and increasing the resilience of infrastructure and buildings citywide. So, although New York City has a good resilience plan, how to pay for rebuilding will be an issue. The resilience plan consists of 250 initiatives, which will cost nearly $20 billion, including a 10-year plan of special initiative for rebuilding and resiliency of $14 billion. However, from the New York's From New York City's experience, it is clear that what strategies are important in resilience planning, which are engaging in climate change projection and disaster assessment, examining fiscal losses and cost-benefit analysis, developing community and rebuilding resiliency plans, and identifying the funding initiatives. There is enough information handed to act on stormwater management based on research and available sciences, and it should be a priority to plan across the metropolitan region. Society should work together to find measurable, achievable ways to prepare for natural disaster before it's too late.